when you teach poetry, how do your students respond to poetry? You are rendering, you are interpreting. How do the students respond to you, or how do the students interact with you when you discuss a piece of poem?
To be very honest, like they really enjoy listening to a poem,
Okay.
and then they try to come up with their own interpretation. And then there are occasions they've asked me, do you think what we are interpreting must have been the mind of the poets? Okay, that is an often asked question. So like it's sort of a collaborative discussion it leads to. Like I told you, in a postgraduate class it's much more. In a graduation class, they're just trying to bring out their own experience.
Okay.
At times, we too have this experience. So that way they really enjoy my classes. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Students bring in their own experience.
Their own experience.
Okay.
And try to say, even we had a similar experience. When I just asked them, do you have anything like that? How do you feel about this poem? Do you have any experience like this? We do have a similar experience. So they share their experience.
Is there any one example that you can recall?
That's what I told you about this Richard Corey.
Okay.
Okay. So immediately they said, like what we are going through right now. There are so many people starving here.
Okay.
Okay. So they bring out such experience, and we just got ourselves diverted from poem to COVID-19.
Okay.
And even that I said, you can bring even that part of a poem. Like for example, like among school children, if I remember, 8 speaks about like he comes as a senator entering the school and looking at the school, he thinks about his own school days. The second stanza, he goes little away, okay, and then he goes little away and then he speaks about the muses, and third stanza again he comes to school. That is the beauty of poem. It's like for a prose piece, we have to, it's like a sculptor who is sculpturing the whole thing. For a prose, like he starts with the hair and the forehead and the nose. That's my own way of interpreting, okay? And then there's a structure he gives. Whereas a poet can bring his polish from the fingers, nails. He can go to this and leave it here. Again, he can start from the toe and he can connect it.
That is poetic.
Yeah, that is poetic, and that's how. So like we just go into lots of discussion like this. They enjoy the classes. It's always beyond the teaching hour. Okay, and somebody other lecturer comes and says it's time for your class. Only then even the students will disperse. So they really enjoy.
Okay. What about your students, ma'am? How do they respond to you?
As I told that they enjoy a lot, but also they encounter a lot of challenges in the interpretation. Particularly, I'm reminded when ma'am was explaining about that. I have to teach Jewish poem where I felt very difficult. There are moments of emptiness where I would stand and stare at them of how to bring about a particular feeling to them, more with the war poetry or even with the Jewish poetry. And it becomes very important for us to foreground the poem with something. So I just try to put in just the documentaries or some movie clips for them to understand the perennial refugee status of the Jews, for them to go with the with more sensibility towards the poem. So these are some of the challenges faced by the teachers, that particularly the country like India, which had not for the contemporaries, they have not seen wars. And how do we bring in that kind of more of what T.S. Eliot would call as the unified sensibility in these things. So all that had been just read as the historical facts for them. But when it comes as a poem, how do we take it up to the students? So there are a lot of scaffolding that needs to be done to the students, and we try to supplement it with the movies which I could recommend for them so that they could watch in the weekends, or taking the documentaries or the clips which they can watch for them to understand who the Jews are and what their problem is. Even though we are not going to engage all the time in the storytelling classes about all these things. So this visual mode of looking at and understanding their status really gives them more pleasure and also a challenge. So the poem might be just a piece with 10 lines or 14 lines or 20 lines, but the effort that the students need to take in order to do good justice to the poem, demands multidimensional aspects. That is why I usually tell the students that taking up English literature doesn't mean that we are going to speak stories all the time. So it is going to be multidisciplinary, not even just interdisciplinary, it is going to be multidisciplinary in its approach. And it is very important for you to have good understanding about the history or anthropology or psychology and many other fields.
True.
So they understand the seriousness of it, and they also do enjoy when they come out with the exploration. So as we say, poetry is the better understanding of the known and even exploring the unknown.
Yeah, it
And
does.
it does. So that is how I think they enjoy the poetry classes.
Do you have any specific Jewish poet or a text that you discuss in the class?
Yes, sir. I was actually discussing about the Jewish poem where the unable to identify themselves, because identity becomes very, very important for anyone. But for the students in India or elsewhere, this might not be a very great problem for them, because we as Indians we also enjoy the diversity.
True.
We are so used to this idea of it. But for the Jews who keep, or even with Nizam's poetry that comes up with, so we find that it is a lot of struggle. The poem, the refugee itself, brings in a good view or presentation, and that just comes as a nutshell of history of the Jews. So that is where we need to facilitate the students to understand that.
Okay. With all this, can we say something that this is what our students gain from our teaching of poetry in the class?
Yeah. They do gain a lot, not only students, anybody who reads a poem.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. For example, let us take a poem. When we read the poem, for example, like road not taken, I've already quoted, two roads diverged. When a person is not able to understand the meaning of diverge, it's an example. Immediately he will go and refer. So thereby is developing his vocabulary.
Yes.
Okay, is verbal thinking.
Yes.
And then as he is reading the poem, he is able to have some sort of an understanding with the poet. Sometimes a poem might make him very sad. So he develops empathy.
Oh, that's
Okay.
great.
And then when we are trying to analyze the poem, critical thinking.
Yes.
Okay. And some poems will give him a spark.
Yeah.
A poem ignites a spark in a human being. Okay. And it has got a lots of dimension and perceptions in a poem. And such dimension and perception will definitely help him when he is facing a problem in life.
True.
Or somebody is just passing a comment on him. Let us take an ordinary example. He need not get angry immediately with the other person. He has to think. And this thinking and dimension, perception, only a poem is teaching him. Suppose he is facing a problem in his life. Immediately he can think of, oh, to the west wind. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? How long? All of us are very happy sitting at home right now in a lockdown, thanks to a literature. How long this is going to be there? Only for a short while. So poems always gives you what is known as a soothing value to you and a soothing feeling to you, and makes you very comfortable, and you can face any situation in life. And no problem will be a problem when you have read a lots of poems. And you can enjoy nature. Even sitting at home for 90 days, of course, by looking from a window, you can be very happy. You can be somewhere heavenly, because thanks to poem. You can imagine yourself as a Wordsworth. So many things we can do, only when thanks to poems. So I think students can gain all this quality, verbal thinking, critical thinking, and then vocabulary, and then he can develop his words, and then any poem
Empathy you mentioned.
empathy, and then igniting a spark in him. Okay, why not? When he can do it, why not me? Okay, and when he's feeling of having a problem, all these what he has read in his life, anybody for that matter, not only a student should learn poem, everybody should read poem to develop his overall personality.
Okay.
In the end of it, you'll be a better human being. You will just avoid all sorts of negative qualities. No anger, no jealousy, no pride, thanks to poem.
Okay.
That teaches you a wonderful lesson. It molds one's personality.
So can I summarize it like this? Poetry has a refining power on human beings.
Yeah. Literature is a reflection of life. I say it's a refraction of life.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. It's not only reflecting; it's also refracting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. What about you? What do you think your students gain from your teaching of poetry, or anyone's teaching of poetry for that matter?
So the first thing is poetry is for pleasure,
Okay.
of course. So they enjoy doing that, and particularly I find that when they are able to meet several characters, several dimensions of the human mind. So I think they develop more skills in understanding humanity better. And I am just reiterating the point of, as Madam said, that it is more to do with their own judgment about the people living around. So it all serves as a touchstone here. That they could have a better sense of humanity, they will be able to deal with their lives better. And literature is not a very abstract subject as such, which we could dismiss as a part of that. It connects them with life. So it is a very lively experience, and I think they will be able to be better citizens in the world by good understanding, making better judgments, and meeting so many characters through literature, though very imaginative, that we also see the reality that exists in life. So that way, I think it not only just helps them with language, with the communication skills, it also helps them with the critical thinking skills also, and to have a better understanding of humanity, which would make their lives very happier.
From you, I understand that students become better citizens of the country and the society.
Definitely, sir.
Okay.
There is more refined sensibility which they develop.
Now, we have something very important for students. Whenever they come to poetry classes, they have one problem: how to write answers for questions on poetry in the examination, in the tests and in the university examinations. Do you have some suggestions for your students?
Yeah. I always tell them what is happening in classroom is totally a different scenario, because that's where I'm trying to mold you as a better human being. We are having a collaborative discussion to make you a better person. I too learn from your experience. It is just a teaching learning experience in a classroom. When it comes to examination, you must always think of the evaluator's mind.
Yes.
Okay.
What is that? Please explain.
Yeah. Don't forget about the poet, forget about everybody around you. Only evaluator should be there in your mind.
Okay.
How will you mark my answer?
Okay.
So first I tell them, like, you just write about the poet,
Okay.
and then the age,
Okay.
and then come the summary of the poem,
Okay.
the critical summary interpretation,
Okay.
and then the theme of the poem.
Okay.
And in this include a style of writing also. If it's going for a PG class, a little more of a discussion where you can bring in the theory part and try to justify. If it's going to be a graduation class, the questions will be more direct. What is the theme of Robert Frost wrote Not Taken, and what does Shelley say in Hope to West Wind? Whereas in a PG class, like just if a statement of Robert Frost says a poem begins with delight and ends with wisdom, just if a reference to a poem. So you must try to justify it. So in that way you must present your answer. This is how I teach them, sir.
Okay. Then your students are satisfied.
Yeah, they are satisfied. The evaluator is also satisfied. They are getting good marks.
Yeah, the ultimate test is getting good marks.
Yeah. That is
Okay.
also.
What about you, ma'am?
I slightly differ in that of how I look at the students is I just tell them that you go and sit in the examination hall and you look at the questions. You just contemplate a bit on the poem and you just start presenting it, of course, in a very structured manner. So that is, you
structure?
enjoy.
What kind of structure do you
So
want to have?
I just tell them to go on, as Madam said, to introduce the poet, and then going on with the title of the poem, and then go on with the structural analysis of the poem, then the thematic analysis of the poem, and also the stylistic devices, the poetic devices that were embedded in it, and then conclude it with your views on how, and you can also add your personal note to what you understood with that poem. So, that way they will have the structured presentation, but at the same time I tell them that you just think about that poem, enjoy yourself, but present it in a very structured way, so that the evaluator will be able to see that you have a good understanding of the parts of the poem.
Okay.
So that is how.
When the students give their own opinion, personal experience, how do you think it will be marked by the evaluator?
I think the evaluator would only enjoy how the student has connected it with life.
Okay.
So, as the evaluator, I would not be dismissing it. We often find that in the answer scripts.
Very, very good.
And so, the teacher would have actually shared some sort of comparisons in order to illustrate her point. And we find that same example being quoted in the answer scripts.
Okay.
And so, we only enjoy it, and so I think the evaluation gets better with that the student has been very sincere in the class and also able to come up with. That is what we are actually expecting it from the students.
Okay.
They need to be creative.
Okay.
Just not.
And moreover, it will be better if they can quote a few lines from the poem.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, they have to quote. Sometimes we mark them, this is the important quotation. Sometimes, like I ask them, what do you feel is important? So, quoting lines of the poem plays a very important role in structuring their answer.
Yeah, that's where exactly I wanted you to ask. What kind of personal experience the students writing in the exam will receive more marks?
Like,
So, from you, I understand that the students writing about his own experience with reference to some quoted passages would be more suitable.
Suitable, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like for example, the popular lines, a well said line, often spoken lines can be quoted. If you take Shelley's, like we don't speak about the first stanza at all because it just starts with delight. That is delight everywhere. But we speak always about winter comes and spring be far behind.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, winter is much more nice for us in India. But we still just go along with the European culture.
That we consider it metaphorically.
That way.
Yeah. Okay. So, we have considered several questions in our discussion today. I think we should end our panel discussion with some readings by you. You have already rendered one poem.
Yeah.
You have some poem to read, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Please.
So, I would just like to recite Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach. I am not going with the whole poem, but some of the stanzas which I could share.
Okay.
So, as I already told that it starts with the sea is calm tonight. And then I go on with the second stanza. The sea of faith was once too at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But now I only hear its melancholy, long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges, drear and naked shingles of the world. And then the poem makes a transition to the domestic setting. And, our love, let us be true to one another, for the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. And we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. And I feel that this poem is a clarion call made by Matthew Arnold, not to give a very negative vision of life, but for us to understand the vicissitudes of life and also develop that kind of mental attitude that we have to understand the challenges and look for a better world. And that is how I understood Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach, that he is making a call for all of us to look for or rather to create a beautiful world where we all could live in peace.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I just like to read this Louis Gluck's poem because
Yes,
she
please.
has won the Nobel Prize.
That's very
so I
nice of
thought
you.
we can pay a tribute in this
Please
panel
do.
discussion.
Yes.
The poem is From a Village Life. The name of the poem is Crossroads.
Yes.
Okay. My body, Now that we'll not be traveling together much longer, I begin to feel a new tenderness toward you, very raw and unfamiliar, like what I remember of love when I was young. Love that was often so foolish in its objectives, but never in its choices, its intensities, too much demanded in advance, too much that could not be promised. My soul has been so fearful, so violent, forgive its brutality, as though it were that so. My hand moves over you cautiously, not wishing to give offense, but eager, finally, to achieve expression as substance. It is not the earth I will miss, it is you I will miss.
That's great, ma'am. The title itself is metaphorically relevant to all of us all the time. Crossroads. We refer to two roads of Robert Frost, and this Dover Beach is also not one beach, many beaches. Crossroads, cross beaches, and that's excellent. I am very happy that you have brought this poem by Glick to us to this panel discussion. I hope we have had an enjoyable panel discussion on serious questions about the poetry, on what is poetry, why do we teach poetry, how do we teach poetry, the common questions that our students may ask us in our classrooms when we discuss poetry, and some strategies that we may learn from others or we may develop on our own as we teach poetry in the class, and some of the favorite poems that we often refer to as a kind of lighthouse, some kind of uh, light for us to see some path in the darkness all the time in our life. And then we also paid attention to the kind of responses that we get from our students and the benefits that our students gain from reading poetry, and for us also, as you were mentioning several benefits of reading poetry in the class for your students. I think we are also learning, gaining so much from reading poetry. In one sense, I understand that poetry is all about positivity. Even a poem which has negative experiences somehow finally at the end indicates a kind of positive note, for which I think Glick also received her Nobel Prize this year. There is an element of hope at the end of every poem that we can feel happy about. And most importantly, for learners of our course, we address this question on how to write an answer in an examination hall about any question on poetry. Both of them gave, both Professor Meena Kumari and Professor Kalvi Karasi gave their responses regarding some structured way of answering the question. First, understanding the question is important. Then, depending on the nature of the question, we have to give some background about the poet, about the context in which the poet wrote his her poem, then brief summary of the poem, critical summary of the poem, some comment on the theme, and if the learner is in the postgraduate level, some critical account applying some kind of theory. And most importantly for all of us, it will be good for us to share some of our own experiences and relate these experiences with the key lines from the poem. I think we would do a very good job, and we have also shared some of our poems. We will like to end this discussion with a small poem from a poet called A.R. Ammons, on whom I did my PhD. I could relate to him in so many ways as I could to many other poets. Poetry opened up the gates for relating with others, with all kinds of experiences in my life. That's why I have two teachers with whom I could relate through poetry. The poem is called Small Song. The reeds give way to the wind and give the wind away. Let me read it again. The reeds give way to the wind and give the wind away. It's a beautiful message. The reeds give way to the wind, receive the wind, and then give way to the wind. We have received some poems from our teachers, from our courses, and we have passed on these poems and experiences to you. All the best. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, for your participation in this panel discussion on these various questions. Let me hope that our learners will find them very useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. Hail the poets.